Donald Trump detonated a rhetorical bomb in Europe this week. He visited NATO's headquarters in Brussels for meetings on Wednesday and Thursday. In the morning he arrived, he got off to a very combative start. He laid into Germany at a breakfast meeting with EU officials, and he strongly condemned Germany for doing billions worth of business deals with Russia, while at the same time relying on America to defend them from Russia. Here's him laying into Germany and other European countries for not spending enough on their militaries.
And I think that these countries have to step it up, not over a 10-year period, they have to step it up immediately. Germany is a rich country. They talk about they're going to increase it a tiny bit by 2030. Well, they could increase it immediately tomorrow and have no problem. I don't think it's fair to the United States. So we're going to have to do something because we're not going to put up with it. We can't put up with it, and it's inappropriate.
So a couple of takeaways from this. Donald Trump is pushing Germany to rearm. Now, I completely sympathize with his statements about America getting ripped off. They are. But he's pushing Germany to remilitarize in a serious way, a world-changing way. If Germany spent 2% of its economy on its military, they would be outspending Russia. Then, when you look at the other EU nations to that, you'd have France, you'd have Spain, you'd have Italy that would be often working alongside Germany, and you're talking about making Europe a serious military force. And in fact, Mr. Trump went beyond calling for Germany to spend 2% of its economy on its defense. Here's what he said in an interview with The Sun.
I think all the countries in Europe should pay 4%, not 2%. And many of them, like Germany, is only paying 1.1%. And so we protect Germany and they're only paying 1%, 1.1%. It's very unfair.
According to officials, he made similar comments at the NATO meetings themselves. So he wants Germany to spend 4% of its economy on its defense. That would come up to well over 150 billion US dollars. And if they spent that much, they'd be spending more on their defense than any other nation except for America and China. And then if you think about all of Europe spending that much on their defense, you're talking about a new superpower. Now, we've been talking about forecasting the rise of this superpower for years at thetrumpet.com, at The Trumpet Magazine, the Plain Truth Magazine before us. The Bible prophesies of another resurrection of a major world power in Europe. You can read more about these prophecies in our free booklet, He Was Right. It goes through how Herbert W. Armstrong forecast this European power decades ago. It gives you specific examples about how those forecasts have already been proved right. Things like saying that Eastern Europe would break away from behind the Iron Curtain and join Western Europe, which happened a couple of decades ago. So Mr. Trump is remilitarizing Europe, or pushing Europe to remilitarize. But his presidency is also exposing a divide that has grown between Europe and the US. These two are no longer as close as they once appeared. And someone else wants to move in on Germany. There was another visit to Europe this week, much less hyped than Mr. Trump's. The Chinese premier met with the German Chancellor Angela Merkel in Berlin on July 9th. During the meeting, business leaders signed over 20 billion in deals. But what I think is really significant is that later the same day, China announced that it would free Liu Xi, a controversial political figure. Liu is the widow of one of China's most famous dissident writers and the human rights activists, Liu Xiaobo. And while China said the release had nothing to do with Germany, but no one really believes that. Just this May, Miss Merkel asked China to release Liu. For years, Germany's been badgering China about human rights, about political prisoners, and China's not really done very much. But only now does China do something. Why? While China themselves are facing a trade war with the United States. This move shows, I think, that they're starting to get a bit desperate, that faced with a trade war with America, they really want to be in Germany's good books, and they're willing to make some concessions that they've not been willing to make before in order to get in those good books. And this leads into a prophecy that we've talked a lot about. Isaiah 23 talks about a mart of nations that both Europe and China play a very prominent role in. It's a trading relationship, an economic relationship, this chapter makes clear. And we see that building right now, with these countries drawing closer together. You can read more about that trading relationship in our April 2017 article, Trade Wars Have Begun. So that's the big overview from Germany this week. A split from the US, a Germany being pushed into remilitarization, and a budding relationship between Germany and China. You can read more about these trends, about the other material that I've mentioned, like the He Was Right booklet, and catch up on a lot of other very important news, all for free at our website, thetrumpet.com.